We are live. Good
There we
evening,
go.
everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks for joining me on the stream. Joey and Mr. Boots is here. He's fixing to take a nap, though. So,
Looks like he's already ready for the nap.
sorry I had to mute my YouTube.
I don't even have mine up yet.
I like to have the YouTube one open just in case I need to hit the button for any reason. Well, thanks for showing up, everybody. We got 23, it says there. And Bob was taken away this evening, and so he alerted me to that. And so I decided, well, everybody's going to be looking for something to do Tuesday night, so why don't we just have a live? Asked Joey if he was available, and he was kind enough to help me out here tonight because I don't count myself as a really very good host at these things. So I haven't talked to you in like 3 days, Joey. So what have you been doing the last 3 days?
Been splitting bees.
I was going to ask
Pulling
you if
notes
you've been
on most of them.
splitting more bees.
But
That's exciting.
yeah, I've skipped some of them that were kind of way behind the rest. Now, time I get back to them, they may be building swarm cells. That'll be okay too. I'll make use out of them. I don't see how I can get YouTube open here. There's Ian.
There's the boss. What he says, how's the weather down there?
Oh yeah, in southeast Louisiana, it's been warm. It's been pretty nice. Been in low 80s, and the humidity wasn't too bad yesterday. A little hotter today, but I hadn't been in a bee yard today. It was hot enough to get me sweaty. Pretty hot.
I was just looking at a picture that
I was trying to see how to open up the YouTube out here, Brad, and I don't see it. For some reason.
I don't know what you're using. Are you using a computer or a phone or?
I'm on my laptop, PC. I mean, a Mac.
I just run two tabs in Chrome.
I guess I can just go into YouTube and open it.
I think I'm on a lag or something.
That's what I'm going to do. One of us might be. Let's see. I'm going to have to mute it as soon as it opens.
Chrome has this neat feature now. It's fairly new. You can run split screen in the browser. You can split the screen between two tabs. So that's what I actually do. I run StreamYard on one side, and then I run YouTube in the other side, but I shrink the YouTube one down so that all I see are the comments. Okay. You start to fuss.
All right. I got it now.
All right. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah,
about the summer is
more. I guess. I'm sorry.
I'm lagging, I guess.
I'm not be the one lagging. But I usually see more over here when I'm on with somebody else, and I was just wondering. It might be the free version is different. I don't know. Anyway, StreamYard. I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah. There's usually a link right there that I can click on and go straight to the YouTube live. It doesn't matter. I got it open over here if I need to go over there for some reason. Is this going to be just me and you, or are we going to let people in here?
We
might need some help.
I put up the link already. So if
Oh,
anybody
did
wants to come in and visit with us,
okay.
please do so. Um, so I was I was mentioning you were splitting bees, and I'm jealous because it's one of my favorite things to do. Is besides raising queens, is splitting bees, making nukes. I love anything to do with nukes. I love nukes. I just love working with nukes. They're so easy. They're so well
Yeah.
mannered. You know, they're so flexible too. There's so much potential in a nuke. You can do so many things with them.
Yeah, I like to take some of my older queens that's still laying good, even if I'm gonna replace her, and, just put her off in a nuke with a couple of frames of her brood and let her start from scratch and build that nuke back up, and you can pull you'd be surprised how many frames you can pull out of there and put to one of your production hives.
I do that
Just
every
keep her
time I
rolling.
can. Every time I can, I do that. Any colony that's not really catching on, I just put it in a nuke box, set it on the side,
Yeah.
and I remember it was, what was it, 24? I think in 24, yeah, I had a bunch of those, and those resource nukes gave me all of the brood and bees I needed for my cell builder, and gave me all of the brood and bees I needed for my mating nukes. It just 100% supported my queen rearing operation. I remember one year I was raising queens and I had a bunch of resource nukes sitting around. It comes into August and I have to decide what to do with them because I'm running out of season. And I had to start putting brood. I had way too much brood in my apiary. I didn't know what to do with it. I was making, get this, I was making splits with
Hmm.
10 frames of brood in August because
Good
I had
gracious.
all this brood in my apiary and I didn't know what to do with it. So I did what I could.
I guess that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, good problem to have. It's they come about
Yeah.
at the end of the first week in August. I really want to have that problem solved because if I need to take some brood and just set it even up in a honey super somewhere over a colony, then by the end of August, then it's all hatched out. It's all emerged. Just give it 3 weeks and it's empty.
Yeah. But I use several nukes like that for, um, what we got set up as cell builders. Hmm.
Wow.
I I had several nukes last year that I used for that, and, I could got where I couldn't keep up with them. Well, that
Yeah.
I guess the big thing was I just kept taking the brood with no bees, cap brood with no bees and putting them in other hives. So what was emerging in there that I wasn't taking, it just kept building up
Good.
with bees
Bigger,
in there.
bigger.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
I probably should take some of the bees too every now and then, kinda keep her down on the downhill side.
Yeah. When I'm raising queens, I'll keep pulling frames of brood and putting them in my cell builder just to have a constant emergence of young bees in there. I think that helps them out a lot.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait to raise queens. I just love raising queens. I get talking about it and I think, oh, I want to go out and do it now, but it's cold.
I
So
just can't see good enough to graft. I've tried it.
yeah,
I've used that Nico. Some people say Nico, some people say Nicot.
I caught. Yeah,
I've used
you're
that a
you're
little bit.
you're farsighted though. You're
Yeah, well, near
farsighted.
I actually have been nearsighted all my life, but now I'm farsighted because of my correction I did.
Yeah. Um,
I would probably have to wear 3s if I wanted to try to graft on
I
readers.
I wear 6.
Do you?
I wear 6X glasses to graft. Like, literally, I can't see any farther than just a few inches, uh,
Yeah.
in front of my face, but it gives me enough with the glasses, as opposed to just a magnifying glass, I still get some depth to it, which I find is difficult when I just use a magnifying glass. You
Yeah.
don't get the depth, uh, and it gives me enough, more than enough. It's quite easy to see them with 6X. So maybe just boost it up. I bought some 4s when I was going to do that, and it was just not quite enough. And so I bought some 6s, and it works out.
Mm.
Word to the wise, though, don't leave those kind of glasses sitting out where the sun can get at them, because
It
they'll
said
burn.
something
They'll
fire.
burn down whatever they're in. I use my old truck out there to graft in, and I have to make sure I keep those glasses in the glove box because I don't want them sitting around in the cab somewhere.
I had an uncle almost burn his truck up. He had a magnifying glass, and I
Mhm.
I can't remember. It was something about his job that he needed. He worked with the forestry division, but something he'd do sometimes, he would use that magnifying glass, and his youngin got it out one day playing with it, and he just laid it on the seat of that truck, and it burned a hole about that big around in the seat of that
Yeah,
truck before he caught it.
that that girl that comes out here to work sometimes, you see her on my videos. They had a cabin that burned down because they had, I don't know, it was a magnifying glass, but it was something. It could have been just a bottle or something sitting in the sun in the front porch maybe, or something. I don't know the details, but she said that's what started the fire. It was I forget what she called it. It was an interesting term they gave it, but that's what it was. It was just the sun hitting something that magnified and caused.
Yeah.
Here he comes back. Uh, Cause it burnt the cabin to the ground. Okay, Mr. Bootsy.
Yeah. He's back where he wanted to be.
Yeah, he was fussing and he had a little snack here. Now he's back. No, I was gonna say I saw a picture. Did I tell you I saw a picture that I took a year ago, a week ago, 2 years ago, like a week earlier, 2 years ago, and there was almost no snow at all on the ground here. And now it almost looks like this.
Huh.
We've hardly melted any snow at all. So when it warms up, it's going to get really wet here really fast, which is not good. Hey, Brian says hi.
Yeah. I held him back.
So I was looking at the forecast, and if it holds, I should be moving my bees out on Monday next week. Always look
That's
forward to
another
that.
good video.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all kinds of brown snow.
So how
Yeah.
many you got? How many you got inside right now?
Well, I put 44 in there.
44.
Well, 46 really. 44 nukes, and then just 2 colonies.
That one that had came out for a while and went back in, they still there, or
I don't know.
you
I don't
can't
know.
get
They're
that
down.
computer.
They're down in the stack, so I can't do much with them. But
Yeah.
uh, I'm gonna make sure I document what's going on with that one because everybody wants to know.
What's Jim asking?
Hey, boss,
Hey,
Evening, guys.
what's he asking? Do you guys know people that use medium honey bridges, so to speak, with no excluder, or does everyone use queen excluder? Tried, neither, ended up with brood and supers. I went back to queen excluder. Yeah, the honey, what do they call it, Joey? The honey barrier? The honey,
Well, I know most times they say once they get that honey band up there,
yeah, the
they
queen
won't put
doesn't go
the queen
across it.
across, but that's not always 100%. But I've let mine go several years without excluders, and most of them would go up a little bit and go back down. But I have had them that would chimney in all
Mm,
three groups. They would be about 4 frames all the way down. Of course, they wasn't all full of brood, but it was had brood in a bunch of them in the middle. So I got to where I use excluders again and go all the way down.
yeah, that causes such a
So,
pain in the fall.
yeah, it is.
So what's new, Ian?
Well, just getting things ready, moving things around in the winter shed, preparing to move out. Maybe I was thinking maybe end of this week, but it feels cold, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
Just cold. Yeah.
yeah,
So I might just wait until and let the weekend. We'll see what the forecast does. If it starts to really warm up, then I might start moving. I want to make sure to move out on the frost because my yards are soft, like really
yeah,
soft.
yeah.
So I need to move them out on the frost. Otherwise, I can't get them where I need to get them. So I might have to go a bit early here. We'll see
Start.
tomorrow. Tomorrow, the forecast will tell us what. But there's weather north of us. Are you getting any rain or snow today?
Uh, we hadn't so far, but I did see the forecast. It didn't look good.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. I'm looking at the same thing. By the forecast, if it holds, I'll probably move out on Monday because Sunday night's going to be a bit cool, -9, they say,
Okay.
and then not as cold nights for the week following that. And, things can change, but as it
Yeah.
stands. And Monday is, I forget what it said. Monday is 2.
Yeah. They can't seem to agree on it, can they?
2 degrees, but it's overcast. So the lack of sunshine will help keep the ground firm.
Yeah. That should work. Yeah. It's
And
got
I'll have to
cold
do the
around me.
same thing. I'll have to be out there as soon as the sun comes up. Use the morning.
Environment Canada is a little more optimistic, I think, with their weather. Weather Network's a little more pessimistic. So yeah, I might wait. They were calling for a 9 on Sunday, but now they aren't.
Wow. Yeah, AccuWeather called
Who
for
knows? Yeah, who
2 on
knows?
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
If it was going to be 9 on Sunday, I was going to try to get them out for that day. But if it's going to be cool, maybe I'll wait till next week. The shed's in no real. I mean, I'm starting to see some of the fronts get a little bit messy on me, but not too bad. I had one colony kind of blow it to starvation on me. I hate
Mm.
saying that, but yeah, I get a few of them every year. And the cooler, I mean, I've had the cooler going for a number of days now, so it's very steady in the shed. There's not a lot of activity going on.
I just see way too much poop in my shed every spring.
Oh no,
I'm really getting tired of it, but
yeah,
I don't know what I can do differently.
your
Brad,
outdoor ones
I'm
though.
gonna go out, come back in. Something
Oh,
ain't right with this right
oh,
here. I'll be
okay,
right
Joey.
back.
Your outdoor, your last video you had shown, your outdoor ones seem to be a little poopy around the entrance too.
Yeah, they're poopy too. So, I don't think it's an indoor thing. The outdoor ones last year were pretty poopy too.
Yeah, that's the way it's presenting anyway. That is very unusual because you probably have the most clean comb, of any beekeeper in Manitoba, because you went through a
pretty
lot of
clean.
effort to,
Yeah.
render down, and you dropped in fresh honeycomb. I remember that very distinctively.
Yeah.
And that's all rotated out, and
Mm.
your mite control went through. You had a nice brood nest going into fall. You cleaned your syrup up. You kept all your supplements out just to,
Bleached everything, no supplements.
yeah. It's got to be environmental. You don't have agriculture around you.
Not much.
Well, you have
Not
some
anything
soybeans
that they'll
creeping in,
forage.
maybe. Eh?
Some a little bit of soybean, and not right on my doorstep either.
Yeah. Well, I have soybeans here too. A lot of them.
Yeah.
It's just a puzzle. I'm not going to say like my yard's. Excuse me. I'm not going to say my shed's clean, because there are messy fronts.
Yeah, but I start
you're
seeing poop in
describing
the
it like
shed,
very messy.
in January, February.
Oh,
Right.
That's early. Yeah.
That's not good. And then really poop. Like I went in there today, and it smells bad. It doesn't smell good at all in there.
Ooh, you'll have to scrape the bottom boards.
I learned 1 year. I learned my lesson. I left the building. I got the bees out, and then I get busy, right? And I didn't clean up the mess right away. Oh my God. You really need to get that out of there ASAP.
Oh, that would start to stink. Yeah, that's what I do. Probably the day that they are gone, either I do it myself or get the crew to go in, and we sweep, we vacuum, gutters cleaned out, and we bleach the floor. We get it cleaned right up.
Yeah. Oh man. And I've cleaned out pig barns, and that was 10 times worse than any pig barn. Oh, it was terrible. I was just.
Yeah, it smells. Go ahead, sir. Oh.
I was just the whole time, just about.
It smells good when the bees are flying, because it's it's a sign of flight to the bees and alive, but all mushed into a shed, fermenting and.
Oh man, it was awful.
Terrible.
So I learned my lesson. Never again. Get the scoop shovel and the tractor and the bucket, sweep it up and scoop it out. Because my building gets wet, right?
Oh, that's no good either. Yeah.
Yeah, my building gets water, so all of that sludge is wet. Oh.
You get a lot of condensation in it?
Is that Joey?
You get a lot of condensation in the shed?
Well, that building is a bit low.
Probably meltwater, from the
meltwater.
Snow. Yeah.
The meltwater kind of runs in there in the spring, which I don't like to say that because it's my honey house, but it's only an issue in the spring when the snow melts and the bit of water comes through under the door. Can't really avoid
maybe
it.
Groundwater, maybe water coming up through also, maybe.
I won't say no, because I have seen the cracks in the floor look a little damp. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Mike.
Thanks for coming.
I
noticed the groundwater, the water table here anyway is right to the top. Like, we are full. So last fall filled us up, and all the meltwater now is being shed off, like all of it. We'll be starting the year with lots of water in the ground. That's a good thing.
Well, there's lots of water here. My well, if you took the top off my well, you'd see the water sitting 18 inches above the ground.
Yeah.
It's that huge lake. It just puts so much pressure on the aquifer.
Yeah, I took a pallet of bees outside just to see. So I tipped them back, and both those were alive. Nothing spectacularly big, but they're sitting on honey. So I tipped it back, felt heavy. I said, okay, that's good. I shouldn't have done that, because if I tipped back a light colony, I would have just what am I supposed to do?
Yeah,
and then started to fret, and fuss.
You can't help that situation, but no, you're not going to sleep.
Yeah, that's just it. But those two tipped back fairly heavy. So now if I put them out at -10 or -9, they were calling like a -19 on Thursday night here, but they
Wow.
scaled that back to -13 now.
It was -14 here last night. It was cold.
Yeah, it's still cold enough, eh? So if I put them out when it's pretty cold like that, I'm certain they have enough feed to sit on to be able to get them.
Yeah, my forecast says -19 Saturday night, or it's Friday night.
Friday night, -19.
-19, yeah.
Maybe they put it back in.
That's pretty brutal. That's about, for the American guys, that's what, about 5 or 10 below?
You can have
Really
that.
cold. Yeah, well, I'll give it to anybody who wants it. I don't care for it.
We did have a dusting of snow this morning, but it didn't last long.
Yeah. Mike, I got no mix, so it's going down straight tonight.
Oh boy.
Well, as soon as you have a couple, I'll start talking to you about your Canada goose.
My Canada goose.
Yeah, I seen you made a Facebook post on that.
And that wasn't me. That was a Google search, and that was kind of the definition that it came up with. So I thought, I'm going to post this because it kind of made sense. It said, any goose in Canada is a Canadian goose.
Exactly.
Well, they're still calling for 10 degrees on Sunday, 5 degrees on Saturday, 10 degrees on Sunday, 4 degrees on Monday.
Wow.
That's warming up.
Which
and the
which service
minus
is
14, that's Environment Canada for Deerwood.
Oh,
minus
well,
14
still,
Thursday night.
Yeah, but they think climate change is real, so
Yeah, that's kind of far ways out for them. Weather Network's not as optimistic. Yeah.
DC.
Weather Network's warmed up a little bit here for me too. 6 degrees on Sunday. But then the following week is no good. I mean, it's like 1s and 3s and snow and -5s.
I know. It's just one of those years. It's not going to warm up, it seems. But then we'll have 35 in May again.
Yeah. Or the beginning of November when we don't want it.
Remember that? Wasn't that last year or something? We had a few days in May. It was 35 degrees. It's ridiculous.
That gets the land ready pretty quick. We pretty much need temperatures to be around that. As soon as it hits 20s, then the land dries up enough so then we can start putting a crop in. But before we see 20s, we don't get much done. 30s, that quickens things right up.
Yeah.
Dry as dust then.
It's remarkable what just that bit of warmth in the ground really does.
Yeah, I was sweeping the shed today, just walking the aisles, and I was thinking to myself, all this dust in the air. Can't help to think if it's, what's the chances that dust would be, drifting into the colonies and infecting the rest of the bees? What's like a virus? I don't think they live very long on dust or anything like that, right?
Hard to know.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I just don't think they live very long without being, but it's crossed my mind anyways.
Well,
it sure is dusty in there.
Bacteria needs moisture and warmth and food for bacteria, but viruses, who knows?
I'll check ChatGPT and see.
What kind of dust you're talking about?
Oh, here's the big boss coming in. AJW.
AJW. I think big about me is my mouth and my belly.
Well, you and I kind of match then. What were you saying, Joey?
What kind of dust we talking about? Just
dust off the dead bees.
Okay.
dust and mold.
Yeah,
Just the
I get you.
sweepings off the floor.
Well, the farmers are going at it big time here, Ian. They started spraying, killing all my hen bit, dead nettle, and
Oh,
everything today, getting ready to start sticking that corn in the ground.
oh, it's that time of year again already. You guys are dry though, and hot too, I think, right?
Yeah, we are. Unusually warm, and I'd say our moisture is about adequate right now. We were dry, but we got I got 7 inches, and about 10 days ago, or within 10 to 6 days
Okay.
ago in my
Well, the
area.
guys they'll be punching the corn down into moisture then.
Yep. So
It'll be a good start. Yeah. What's the temperature? What was I saying there? You guys are you getting 80s or 90s? You're not getting 90s.
we're getting awful close. 87,
Close
I think they're giving for tomorrow for a high.
Oh boy,
You getting hotter than us then.
Wow.
Punch that into the moisture, that corn will bounce out of the ground just like that.
It'd probably be, I'm going to say 4 or 5 days before they actually put it in the ground. They're spraying, killing everything off, everything my bees eat.
Yeah.
Ground cover forage, they're killing it all off close to me pretty much. So I've got a little protection around me because I've got my own. I don't want to let them spray it till the dead nettle starts drying up.
I just read your name title. You're the president of the Big Mike fan club, eh?
You see that, Mike?
No, I just did.
Can I be
Mike.
VP?
Mike, the VP beekeeper of the year.
Heck yeah, I gotta do something to get on his good side. Yeah, I called him Carl. Carl House the other night.
You called him Carl.
Yeah, that's pretty good
There's
on
worse things.
Oh, I like Carl.
Carl's a good guy, so there's worse things.
Yeah. Well, he was the one that posted the picture of Mike, and I just seen the Carl, and I thought, well, maybe Carl. I didn't look real close, and I came on there. So I'm trying to get on Big Mike's good side. He's too big.
Yeah, you couldn't get on my bad side.
Well, ChatGPT is telling me that dust is not a problem for fires, so maybe that'll put it to rest.
I want to talk a little bit of, if you'll let me, I want to talk a little bit of Formic protocol.
No, we're
You
not going to
guys
talk about
privy
that.
to the Formic protocol, what to do, how to do it, what's the best way to do it,
What do you need to know?
everything.
Everything. Well, first of all, have you read the label in the instructions?
Yeah, I have.
You have?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have. I just took some off today. I've done it for a good while. I call it the Kent Williams method. The one pad and the
So,
OAV afterward.
Formic Pro. So they always recommend to have lots of space. So maybe a empty honey super above just to give them space to fan that vapor around.
I may contradict
I
that.
hope Ian's listening. Because I've seen how
Oh,
he
and JW, I don't have enough experience with it to tell you how is best to use it. I could just reiterate what I've been taught.
Mhm.
That's all. So that's what they tell you. That's what they tell you to give lots
I've
of
used it
volume.
for all. I just was wondering if there was a better way. I've never used the full dosage. Or have you used Formic, Ian?
I've dabbled with it, yeah, on a bunch of yards. When I used the full dose, it was a bad situation. Yeah.
I've never used. I say never. It's been 6 or 7 years since I used the double pads. I've had pretty good luck with the. Like I said, I call it the Kent Williams use the one pad.
Warmer temperatures
25
are
days
good.
later, use the OAV for knockdown
Yeah.
in the spring.
I've never not used 2 pads.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think my application period would be much cooler than you. I'm not saying it would be cold, but It's not going to be in the 80s.
This last treatment I put on, I had everything from 89 to 14
Yeah,
Fahrenheit. You know,
yeah.
during the period, I just jerked one bunch off today, and
They say though that they don't claim a kill under the cap if you use one pad at a time. They do say that.
mm-hmm.
So you might be missing that kind of a
I always use
efficacy.
2 pads,
Yeah.
but I haven't used it in about 4 years.
What were the temperatures, Ian, when you used it? You saw such dramatic results.
Yeah, I was looking back at that the other day because I'm dabbling with it again this spring, and the temperature was 22, 23, 24.
Not hot. That's not hot.
No, the one day was
That should be
sunshine.
perfect.
I think I know what went wrong though.
Okay.
That spring was a cold spring, and the bees pretty much missed the entire forage season. Like they missed the dandelions, they missed all the trees. They didn't bring anything in except for the pail of feed to put on top of them. So the colonies, they weren't starved, but they were light. And at the time I started to treat, they're catching a nectar flow coming in. I was feeding at the same time, but there's nectar flow. So the colonies were very lush. So I'd call them lush, but light. That light part, I think, is what caught me. There wasn't enough honey in there. And when I put the Formic on, I think it shocked the colony as it would. It vaporizes a brood. Whichever way I go about it, whichever method I use, it vaporizes that young brood. And I think when it shocked the colony, they quit foraging, and then they looked for food, and they couldn't find the food, and they went into a stress event. And I think that extra stress compromised those colonies. I'm certain of that as being the issue, because I'm dabbling with it here and there and everywhere otherwise. And it seems like someone's saying the honey actually like a little bit of a buffer, like a cushion. So it absorbs the Formic a little bit. So it's not as harsh. I don't know. I had space, like I had 2 boxes on, so they had lots of space in there, and they had a lot of ventilation in the front. And I did have protein patties on, but I don't know how that would restrict the airflow. And I did have a pail of syrup up on top, but they weren't accessing the syrup anyways. And I was talking to Tom at N.O.D, and he suggested that the act of feeding wouldn't cause a situation like that.
Yeah, I pressured him on that advice not to feed, and he was pretty non-committal on that. He did go into a little bit of detail on it. Was just part of the research that they did in order to get the registration, and they did find some kind of a loose correlation between wintering and feeding while they're being treated. He said that they really didn't understand it, but it was there, so they had to put it on the label.
I think my other problem was I don't understand the product yet, and I just looked too close, and I don't like seeing my brood dying, and it was killing some of my queens. But I'm thinking maybe that's not such a bad thing, is to kill off those queens, because they are probably on their way out anyways. Because I did notice the yards I treated Formic in the fall, they held themselves together much better than the ones I didn't. And the ones I didn't treat, they probably had like a 20%, up to about 25% summer call because of queen issues, I think it was. Yeah. So the Formic probably identified those bad queens, and I got them out, and the colonies held themselves. So there's probably a lot to do with me, just not liking the way the product works. A beekeeper told me, it kills the queens, just carry a queen in your back pocket and drop another one in there. Problem solved.
That's kind of what Randy says. He said, "Don't worry about that." He said, "Those are crappy queens." He said, "You don't want those queens."
But I've also heard that sometimes they don't know if it's the Formic killing them, or because of the hive just going crazy. If the workers are
just
killing
not feeding them.
It could be the bees. It could be something wrong.
And I was wondering, you said you had pollen patties on, Ian?
I did at that time.
I wonder if that restricts the flow through the hive also.
It could have. I did have them on.
Because you got the pads anyways, and then if you got pollen patties anywhere near the same area, that's really restricting the the flow through the hive.
And I'll say that what my last summer experience, I didn't lose one queen. But the weather was just bang on perfect for that treatment last year in August.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And it's in August. Flow. You have honey on hand in the boxes. It's probably an ideal time to treat. I'm grasping at straws, just trying to figure out my experiences.
Well,
So
wouldn't have that stress response that you had, But then again, it was August. It's not like it was full on right in the middle of my honey flow. They should have something around here, but hard to say.
Personally, I've never used it, in the late summer or fall. I've always used it in the spring knockdown. To be honest with you, I'm not talking big time. I'm going to say better than 100 applications.
David,
I've never lost.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, yeah, well, I hear people like Robin Underwood. She was here and she was saying something that I've heard other people say. Randy Oliver, they say, she said, "Oh, I'm in love with Formic Pro." She says, "I see such beautiful brood patterns when it comes out," and I said, "Man, I want that. I want to see those brood patterns." So she said, "Well, just get over it. Just use it." So that's why I'm trying to put my big boy pants on and use the product.
I like it. I've had good luck with it, but I'm no expert. I don't tell other people.
Plus, it don't hurt to kill those mites, right?
What to do. But
there are a lot of commercial guys. Using Formic, and they're seeing a positive experience with it. The commercial guys are losing queens, though. There are no bones about it. I think I stepped on David there. What are you saying, David?
I'm getting double. This is the first time I've tried to join one of these groups.
You have to mute your YouTube side. Mute your YouTube side.
Oh, I see. You're getting an echo.
Yeah.
Probably here in YouTube.
Mute my YouTube side. Where do you mute?
Well, wherever we're looking at YouTube, you have to go back there and mute it.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you.
You should have 2 pages open.
One says StreamYard Studio. So
that's the one you want to be on there. That's one I use.
Try to close one, see what happens.
And exit out.
All you gotta do is mute the YouTube one.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that, guys.
It's all right.
We've all been there.
Live stream and tech support session.
Well, I talked to Brad maybe a month ago. He said I should join in on some of these discussions to answer any questions people might have. And if I could just tell you that I developed Formic Pro and registered it. So if you have any questions about how to register products or develop products or bring them to the marketplace, I can help. And we're in 27 countries now. And I got a plant here in Canada and I got one in Ireland. And we sell millions of doses every year. And if it's happened, I've heard about it. I've been taken to court. I've been, all sorts of things. So it's
all the experiences.
It's not a life path I ever would have chosen. I started beekeeping in 1975. I was on the Ontario board of directors, the Ontario Beekeepers Association, when Varroa hit, and was part of the whole, how does the Ontario industry deal with it? So I've been independent of all other chemicals except formic acid since 2002. And if it has anything to do with formic, I can probably help you out. We run a channel that's got a whole bunch of videos. We just posted one a couple of days ago about the Canadian label, the key things to dial in on. And we're just here to help people. Like, if you buy, don't buy, I don't care. Actually, at this point in my life, I'm 65 in a couple of weeks, and I've seen this arc over my career, and we're here to help, and that's all we do. So
I'll just see, I see James in the lobby. I can only support 6, James, so we'll watch you in the lobby, and if anybody drops off, we'll bring you in.
Anybody that wants on, I'll drop off.
But I don't know. I don't want anybody to feel they're obligated to drop off.
I just
But,
wanted to ask questions about the Formic. I do
Well,
have one
now's
question
the
I'd
time.
like to ask David before I left. What would you call the normal off-gassing period for a pad of Formic?
Well, the full dose will put out enough formic acid to kill mites for 10 days, 10 to 12 days if the conditions are right. But 72 hours is what will actually do the kill. And if you get reinvaded over the next week after that, those will die as well. But it's 72 hours if that's your full dose, and it'll kill the bees under the cap. I'm sorry, not the bees, the varroa developing. When we developed this product, the target was actually the males, because the male varroa mites never get that hard cuticle shell, and the formic acid can penetrate. And the males have to be 10.5 days old before they can mate with the females. So even if the females survive, then they're not going to have viable offspring. So our initial target was the male mite, and as far as I know, we're the only product that targets the male mites. And then that it stops the population rebound after treatment.
Yeah.
If I watch other products, a lot of them are using their brood to raise varroa, and then they can kill them. Whereas we put a stop sign up as soon as the product goes on. 72 hours later, essentially the varroa are under control.
I was wondering what the off-gassing period actually was under laboratory conditions, at least where somebody would know. That's my question, and that's what I've got my answers.
Sure. We spent thousands and thousands of dollars on tubes taking air samples out of beehives. It's not just laboratory. This is field research. Yeah. So we document. The bees run brood rearing zones, and our treatment is not the hive cavity. Our treatment's the brood rearing zone. So you want to get it right into the brood rearing zone, and you have that initial hit, and then that way you go.
So are you supposed to feed with Formic on?
No, not with Formic, not our product. No, you can use exterior feeding, like honey flows are fine, or open source feeding, but in-hive feeding, either pollen patties or with syrup, the colonies are supposed to be well fed before treatment. So
then what does the feeding, the active feeding do during treatment?
Well, the bees are engaged in various activities with in-hive feeding. For one thing, it's got 15% too much moisture if you're feeding 2 to 1, and even more moisture than that, which the bees are uptaking and trying to get rid of. Whereas if they're open source feeding, then they're fetching it like a nectar flow and bringing it in, and just that transference seems to take care of that. Statistically, and we don't know why this is true, but we see about a 20% higher queen loss than ones that aren't open source fed. So if you feed in hive, then that's not good. The other thing to pay attention to is we like a robust honeybee population. So we like to see the first couple rounds of bees coming out of winter. So we don't typically treat until a month after first pollen flow, because that gives you your first, fully nutritionally based bees going into the treatment. And that's typically in our area when dandelion is opening as well. So there's a lot of exterior feed sources. And
so
that's
if
also, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, you're saying feeding with the frame feeders, same with the bucket feeders on top, I imagine. So what is it about the bees processing the syrup with the extra humidity? Is that what it is? Is this interrupting the treatment, or what? Follow through on that thought.
Well, they have to flush the moisture out of the hive. See, we want the concentration of formic acid vapor to be there to kill the varroa mites, right? It's a vaporizing process. So one thing I like you to think about is, when are all the bees home? And that's at night. So I think just watching sticky boards, that you're going to see a lot of the kill that happens is going to be overnight. as opposed to through the day. Because through the day, they're doing a lot of activities at the entrance. There's a lot of ventilation going on. All these things are happening. So you add putting in syrup into the hive cavity, and the bees are, they're not fielders that are taking it up. It's going to be your nurse bees. It'll be bees that normally would be attending to brood to some degree. And it's just, as an overall event, it's very unnatural for them to be given syrup in the hive like that. It's something that we do as beekeepers. But as far as from the bees' perspective themselves, that's not how normally food presents itself to them. Mother Nature provides it differently. So we don't know all the compounding factors, but we know outcomes. And so an outcome is you have less good results, especially with on the queen side, if you're doing in-hive feeding. And we just run hundreds into thousands of colonies in these tests. So you get statistical numbers and you start looking for trends within those numbers. So that's how you come up with the advice that's on the label, you know.
So then the feeding in the yard, like open feeding, is different because you're saying that the activities within the colony itself is different through the day as compared to the night as they're feeding or accessing that syrup at night.
As far as we understand it, you put open source feeding, it's just the older field bees are out foraging and they bring it in, and then the house bees take care of it, convert it, the final conversion into, you know, the high density preserved syrup or honey. We start calling it honey once it's in the brood chambers, but a lot of it's syrup. But that's just a very natural process, and the bees just go about it, and it's like they just ignore the formic acid altogether.
So you're saying you don't actually understand why the feeding affects in a negative way. It's just, you know, that the stats are showing you that the guys that feed with the formic are seeing a negative result to it.
Not if they open source feed. It's not if they open source feed. It's only in hive feeding where we're seeing that outcome.
Yeah. But you don't actually understand what that whole mechanism is that's causing that negative effect because of that.
Well, I guess labeling things a negative effect is also maybe not true as well, because if, like, the formic is going to stress fragile bees, right? It's a population of, you know, 20,000 bees, 10 to 20, 30,000, up to 60,000 bees. And so there's going to be a range of health within those bees, including the queen. And if you can remove any stress factors, then you're going to have an outcome which leaves more bees alive. But the net benefit is right there regardless. So if you trigger a supersedure because you're doing in-hive feeding, then you've triggered a supersedure, but you end up with a young queen. There wouldn't have been the supersedure if she wasn't fragile to some degree and in some ways susceptible. So it's a lot of it, you know, how do you want to manage your bees? So to give another thing, like Ian, if you don't mind me saying, I watched you do your application in June, and I'm thinking, what's this guy doing? You know, these are the bees he wants to go get his honey crop. Like, you want 2 cycles of brood being raised before your honey flow that's healthy. So you want to start 7 weeks at least before your honey flow to do your treatment. So the bees have an opportunity. So 2 cycles of brood, the older cycle, that's going to be your field force, and the younger cycles, your house bees, is going to replenish your field force. So that's why you want to get 6 weeks in before your honey crop when you treat. So.
I don't know if I could have treated any earlier than I did, though. Like, would you suggest treating then in April?
No, I treat typically the first half of May, and your honey flow probably starts like mine does, end of June, early July.
It's often not warm enough here early May to treat with Formic Pro. Our daytime highs are often not really warm enough. That's kind of what happened to me the first time I used it. It was early May, and it was the temperatures weren't really very warm. It didn't work very well.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say our temperatures are very similar to yours, but I think your management structure, like, you're still moving your hives around a lot and doing a bunch of those activities. All you got to do is hit 50 degrees Fahrenheit for your daytime high for the day of application. Doesn't matter how cold it gets at night. So typically there's going to be a window there in your first half of May out on the prairies that will allow you to do that. If it does trickle into the second half of May, then your crops are also going to be slightly delayed that year anyways, because it's a cold spring.
Yeah, that's about the time I did it. Is that like, you're right. Putting a treatment in that compromises the brood nest within the realm of building that nest for the honey flow is a disaster. That's absolutely right. I agree with that. So that's why we have to be so careful here. We have such a tight time period to be able to build out this nest, to get them built up, and we need them bouncing into that honey box, because July is what makes or breaks a beekeeper. We need those bees banging on all cylinders at that time to get them up there. Yeah, so you're absolutely right about that.
Our season's almost identical where I am. Like it's just gonna, some years you'll be slightly ahead of me, some years slightly behind. It's just
Follow your thought though. You said doing it wrong, Ian. You're doing it wrong. What else are you seeing me do wrong? About the time I treated though, that is pretty much the time you're suggesting. That's one thing.
Yeah. So I really appreciate what you do with bees. Like, I find you to be an amazing beekeeper, and I also really appreciate that you share what you do, which kind of opens you up for people that might think you're doing things right and thinking you're doing things wrong. And I just don't want to sound critical.
No. I appreciate open conversation. This is what makes and breaks beekeepers.
Okay, so
this is what we got to figure out, because obviously I used the product, and it didn't go so well for me. And as I'm reviewing my videos, trying to figure out, okay, what is it? I'm coming around to the conclusion that it's just I'm not familiar with it, and I'm not familiar with the way it affects the bees, because you have to admit that it does hit the bee, like it vaporizes the brood nest, the early brood nest.
I'll quantify that a little bit. Whenever you do something like Formic for the first time, there's background issues in your colony that it's going to clean up, and the first round is going to seem harsher than any other. And also there seems to be a bit of learning curve by the bees themselves.
I hear that too. A lot of beekeepers say that there's bees that can take Formic and bees that don't take Formic. I do hear that. So
I'll quote a little bit of scientific literature, but there's a study just completed and published out of Serbia last year that indicates that the Formic actually triggers hygienic behavior as we understand hygienic behavior, which isn't keeping your hive clean, is keeping their brood clean. They know how to clean brood. So when they ran a comparison against conventional active ingredients and stuff, formic acid has this effect of helping stimulate hygienic behavior by the bees. So the first round is going to be tough.
I'll be right back, Brad.
So once you get past that initial cleanse, I'll call it, then your bees seem to be able to handle Formic much better. And after a while, it's nothing. The bees just know how to deal with it. It's
Except it does vaporize the brood, the young brood. I dabble with it here, there, everywhere, all the time. I'm always experimenting, and it always kills that young brood. I'm never getting away from that. It always happens.
I can give you some tips if you want.
Sure.
So I run my brood chambers, single brood chambers. So the tip I would say is always have, especially in the spring, have either honey super or your second brood chamber over a queen excluder if you haven't got them up into the brood chamber yet. People might think by increasing the hive cavity, you're decreasing efficacy, but actually the opposite's true. It just allows the bees to handle the vapor concentration within the hive cavity better. Like, this isn't something we're doing to the bees, like when you stick in a plastic strip of something else. This is a tool the bees take control of, and they'll determine what level, what concentration they can live in. They're very comfortable at 40 parts per million, which would kill us. Like, if we get over 15 parts per million for 15 minutes, we're done as humans. But bees, they can handle acidic environments very well. And so they will take it and hold it at 40 parts per million. And it's
So
just
would
not
there
me.
be-
This is Rob Curry's work with his indoor wintering. Data goes back 20 quarter century.
So would you be able to put too much space on? Let's say
No.
4 boxes.
No, you're treating the brood rearing zone, right? The product has to go in the brood rearing zone, and you know from your thermal cameras that the bees control zones within the hive cavity. So within the hive cavity, you have your brood rearing zone, and if it's a single brood chamber, it goes right on the top bars. If you got more than one brood chamber, it goes on the bottom brood chamber. And that'll really help protect your, it'll help the bees help protect their brood.
So providing them the space is an advantage, but providing them too much space is not a disadvantage as
Correct.
long as that treatment is within the brood nest itself. It has to be in the brood nest. A lot of guys I hear, like a single box, they put a honey box up on top and they treat on top of that second box just to try to minimize some of the negative effects of the formic. What's your thoughts on that?
You just don't get the benefit.
It just doesn't get us efficacy. Yeah.
You lose efficacy. I'll mention something else too. Our concentration of formic acid is 42%. That we dialed it down to as low as possible to get the efficacy that we need. If you go any lower, you just won't see it. Now we can extend the release by having people put on 2 strips, 1 strip 10 days apart, but you're not going to get under the cap to the same degree. Just you're not. And I just rather treat once and I'm done, and the bees rebound beautifully with beautiful brood patterns, and they're there to bring in the crop when I need them. So
yeah, I agree with the rebound effect, because that Brad's seen that too. I seen in his videos. You've seen that rebound after the treatment. Terrific looking brood nest. Young queens too. Yeah.
And I can tell you something else. I spent time with Randy Oliver. He's kindly hosted me in his home. We've done some in the early days of developing Max before we got to the Formic Pro. And Formic Pro is his go-to treatment. And then he does everything else around it. But he doesn't talk about it that way. But when he needs the job done, it's done. And same with New Zealand. Like we sell container loads of Formic Pro into New Zealand. So when the guys are running their oxalic acid strips and all these sorts of things, it's the Formic Pro that cleans up whatever needs to be cleaned up. So just it's well established in the marketplace and various marketplaces. And then people that are the first adopters of any product and they want to test them and then they share that online, their fallback product to save their bees is usually mine. So I take a great deal of pride in having brought it to the beekeeping community. But it's everyone's decision how they want to run their bees. You know, we're an ornerous group of people. So
I've used the pads in all types of conditions. Really hot, 35 degrees in a single box. Put 2 pads in there, kills bees. Like bees rolling out the front dead. But I've done the same thing in 2 boxes, 2 pads, and there's so many dead bees dropped that it plugs the front entrance. How I mean, it's not 35 degrees. It's like around 20, 22 degrees. So what's the mechanisms going on there?
So you have a part.
I understand the hot and dying because it's hot because it's vaporizing off too quick. But why is it doing the same when it's cooler? And I'm putting 2 pads in at that time.
So like maybe the entrances you have, if they're fully open, what some guys do is they do their second box up, they do a setback to allow a groove of space, even if it's sliding. But if it's a queen excluder, they'll slide the queen excluder back so that there's an unimpeded entrance about centimeter wide for bees to get in and out at the top of the first box. And that just allows the bees to create it. And we call it the setback. It's a lot of guys that are commercial beekeepers down in the States that run pallets. A lot of them run the full depth super and then the Western or the 6 5/8 on top of that. Well, they'll offset that top box back for the treatment period. Just has to be back for a week or whatever, and then they'll square it back up again. And that just allows that ventilation to wash through the brood nest.
Okay, so you're not
there's-
afraid that the Formic will be, it won't, the extra ventilation, you're not afraid of diluting the treatment by doing that?
No, because the bees take it to a level they're comfortable with, which is about 40 parts per million. And so they'll take it to that level, and then they'll just go about their business, running their affairs.
Oh, that's interesting.
I can
It's
see
on
your
the
wheels
setback
turning.
is described on the label.
Well,
But-
I want to use a product like that, and I got to figure it out because I'm seeing too much death.
Yeah.
Like bottom
Well,
line, I'm seeing death.
It cleans. It has a cleansing effect, and you just got to get through that initial hump. And it's, there's guys like the wonderful bee people that do the almonds and pistachios, and they got huge number of hives, and they call us up and ask all sorts of questions, and we tell them anything they want to know basically, and then they go and try to make their own product, and we say, good, you go try, have fun, have at it. And then 3 months later they call up and order 15 pallets. It's just we'll tell anyone anything because beekeepers are going to do what they want to do anyways. But we've really figured out the science around this and have got it as safe as possible. You don't need a respirator when you use it. You just, those sachets open with bee gloves on once you learn the sort of movement. And it's very fast. It's as safe as you can use a miticide, and in Canada twice a year, and you're good. So we don't treat by thresholds. Like, I watch you guys going around and taking all those beautiful nurse bees and then killing them. And I've killed off probably myself millions, hundreds, thousands, running all our scientific experiments. But we work by cleaning up the bee populations that are of economic significance. So I want clean bee populations going to the honey flow. And then my drone population, the developing drone, actually protects the worker bees from the varroa mites until they stop rearing drones. And then come mid-August, the colonies really cut back on drone rearing. All those drones in the colony where they're the ones that the varroa are feeding on. And I don't really care about the drones. They're not bringing in my honey crop, right? So what? They want to eat on drones, great. But I got to kill them off before they affect my winter bees. They're my worker, the field force. And so I got to get to them the first half of September so that they're protected to make up the winter bee cluster. And so it's a different approach. I don't have to spend any time monitoring for varroa. I simply protect the bee populations of economic significance. And it's all on you can go to my channel. It's on, we've done videos on how that works. And in my own bees, I'll show you my beehives. That's what they look like going into winter. I stand them up on their ends. You can see the size of the clusters and the feeding. It's just, I try to keep my beekeeping really simple. Is this too much information? I'm sorry if I'm talking
No,
too
it
much.
was very interesting, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Could I comment on a couple other things, Ian? But again, I don't want to offend you.
You're not going to offend me.
I
have a character that I love to hear feedback.
He's
I
pretty
will
hard
push back. I will push back if I need to, but because I do things very purposely. I'm not doing things just happenstance. I'm doing it for a reason. I'm a big believer in that. And whatever we do it for a reason. And maybe that's one of my faults, is I'm looking too closely sometimes at what's going on, because I like to see what's going on as I'm doing things. And I'm thinking maybe that's one of the reasons why Formic hasn't been a fit for me, because it does put the colony in distress, although you're saying otherwise, but everything I'm seeing is saying it does. But yeah, I'm more than as long as you poke at Brad too, you got to talk to find some faults in Brad.
I'm untouchable.
I just want to say I'm so impressed by how you're raising your family. Like you're getting like I raised 3 daughters. They're all late 30s, early 40s now, and I got one coming in now at this stage of her life into the business. So I'm
Oh, that's good.
yeah, I'm quite excited about it. And I watched how you're working with your kids and giving them core skills, and I watched them welding and rebuilding machinery. And my dad was a machinist, and he gave me a lot of skills. Like I learned to weld, I learned basic woodworking, I learned a whole bunch of things, and I used that my whole life. Like back in 1982, I bought an abandoned cheese factory. I had to shoo out the woodchucks, and and I converted that with my wife. Married a year later, and we raised our families. And it was an old cheese factory, and we converted the one end into the honey house, and we're still using it for that, and the other end into our 2-story home. And I kind of regret that I hadn't spent more. I had 3 daughters, and I didn't spend enough time doing exactly what you're doing. And I just watched the skills that they're getting, and it's very impressive. So
well, you got a piece of my heart now. I took my daughter. We dropped off a vehicle, a mechanic, because my son, he run the brakes like right to the rotors, and the rotors all tore up, and so I hardly got to the mechanic without the whole thing binding on me. But anyway, so I got it there, and my daughter gave me a ride back, and she's a nurse right now. She's just about a full year now on the job. And so I was with her in the car driving back. She's giving me a ride back to the farm, saved Sandy a trip. But anyway, she said that that day she was training the new nurses, the trainees and the schooling nurses. And she said she had like 5 or 6 of them under her watch, and she's supervising and providing guidance and all that. And she said that they're the cutest little things. They just walk around and ask questions, and they don't know anything. And they're all scared, And she says, I remember the time when I was in that situation, and I was scared, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to make any mistakes. And now there she is. She's the lead nurse, showing him around. And she said, I did what you did, Dad. I first off, I made sure that they were aware of what they were doing, and I made sure that they provided me feedback on the work that they're doing and why they're doing the work and that. And then when they were making a mistake, I correct them. But I always make sure that they tell me what they're doing, so when they're making a mistake, then they know they are, because I can, guide them along. And it's just the art of teaching, right? Art of guidance, and that. And she learned that from being on the job site here, and I thought that was kind of special. So I like that. Yeah. So
I don't want to take all the time, but I could share another story. So we were having an event at my house, my daughter's house, and my granddaughter. So she's 10 years old, and she wanted, not even 10, 8 years old. And she wanted to carry a pot of hot tea across the kitchen to the serving area. So I very carefully instructed her on how to get burned. If you want to get burned, this is how you do it. Now it's your choice, right? But this is how you can carry a pot of hot tea. And if you want to get burned, this is how you can do it. And so instead of telling her, don't do something with no idea how to go about not doing something, I told her how to get burned, and then she could figure out how to protect herself. And that's kind of been my approach to beekeeping. It's just if you figure out how to get burned, then don't do that. You're a lot better off.
So a beekeeper in my situation, what else would you improve in my management practice, other than not moving them, and other than maybe applying the Formic a little bit earlier, which I agree, but it's all weather dependent though. I mean, like the first round of brood to come out of the shed, we're about to move them out of the shed, hopefully next week. They're going to get brooding the first round cycle. We're looking at the 3rd week of August. when they're finally, the first round of broods hatch. There's a bit of brooding going on, but I mean the springtime brood nest, sheets of brood. So they're going to flip that nest over and they're going to start to grow end of April into May. So I presume that would be the target that you would put the treatments on is end of April.
Well, after the brood being raised now is going to be somewhat nutritionally stressed just because they don't have pollen in there, and they're going to be drawing off the bees. The winter bees that went in are going to be sacrificing their bodies and nutritionally to raise. So it won't be as robust a bee as one that's going to be raised on that first natural pollen. So I just like to get a healthy brood cycle out raised on natural pollen.
Okay, so you're looking at into the second week of May on to the third week of May. Yeah.
Yeah. So
right during the growth season, during the point of time when these colonies are growing, and you're anticipating a split. Right. I mean, and then you put a formic treatment in there. That's kind of harsh, right? To me, that's bad timing.
Can I share the queen rearing that I do? Because it's part of the whole. So when I'll take you right back to my bees are wintered outside, but essentially your bees come out about the time that my bees and their pollen's going to start naturally about the same time. I want to get all my feeding done early. Like I want the bees to transfer all the feed that I'll need all spring into comb, and then I'll move comb the rest of the spring, right? And I only want to do equalization once, and I want to do it in time that I'm doing all my queen work. So, the other thing I'll tell you is I ran 400 to 600 colonies by myself, as well as running my honey packing industry and coordinating staff in the store. So I had to strip out anything that wasn't important. So I had to leave micromanagement for, I just simply call it the opposite of micromanagement, where it's macro management of my bees. And a lot of people say they want the bees to do the work, but they don't. They're in there micromanaging their bees. And I appreciate the learning that comes from that. But when I have all my single brood chamber colonies and I'm going through them and I'm putting the feed barrels out and it's at mid-April point, even if I've only got 3 frames of bees, I'll put on a queen excluder and a second box that's got a couple frames of feed in it, and I'll be open source feeding to stimulate them. So that what that means is when I go around and I put on my Formic Pro that first half of May, that's my first real look at how the colonies have done. So I'll pick within a yard the strongest colonies that if I don't do something, they're going to swarm anyways, because they're already boiling out. There's going to be a few colonies like that in every yard. So I mark them. And when I put on my Formic Pro strip, 1 or 2 hives in that yard, I'll come back 3 days later and I'll take that top box off, which remember it was over a queen excluder. So it's got no brood in it, but they will have cleaned that out because it's been on them for a month. So they've cleaned that out, and because of the strongest hives, they've transferred a lot of food and resources into that upper box. Matter of fact, they'll have a perfectly cleaned out area for the queen to lay in. If she was allowed to get into it, she'd be a machine gun in there, just laying that comb full of eggs. So that's actually my cell builder, believe it or not. I put that box on the stand on its own bottom board where that colony is, and I move that parent colony back, and that's 3 days after I put the Formic Pro treatment on. And that in the yard I'll graft. Because the parent colony's moved back, all her field force will fly in. Anything over 4 days old as an adult bee will fly in, and that's my source of my bees. And they've got nothing else to do except raise those queen cells. And I've already killed off all the varroa in the colony, so I'm not going to get varroa in those queen cells. And that's my cell builder right there in the yard. And then 4 days later, I can come back and graft again. So I used to have an incubator and I ran all that stuff. But my queen cells are in that yard that when the Formic Pro treatment is done and I go through and equalize everything and make all my splits, I just, I move instead of moving everything into a home yard, which I used to do, and then raise my queens in cell building colonies and initial broodless 4-frame units, and then transfer into queen right cell builders and do all that cycle. That, to me, is a methodology that involved in the industrial production of queens. And so here in Canada, when we had to learn queen rearing, we basically looked at the queen rearing model down in the US, which is an industrial design, and copied that into our beekeeping. I've stripped all that out. Instead of moving my hives, I move the beekeeper. And I'm already in the hive in the yards for other purposes. So, if the weather goes bad, I might have to go through and pull out a queen cell bar in the rain and say, these will hatch. But I've already got my backup that's going to emerge 4 days later. And I don't wait till day 10. I start putting queen cells. I'll take them out at day 8. Otherwise, like historically, I would have put them into an incubator. I don't put them into an incubator. I put them into the splits that I'm making up right there. So I've pruned out every excess step. I've got it down to just the core things. Now that colony that I sent back, it's not going to swarm because it lost all its bees to make up my cell starter and builder. And when I go around and I'm making up my splits, usually it's rebuilt itself to a point where I can take a split out of it because it's had all those bees emerging. So I stop a swarm and I get, a double colony out of it. So I've worked all these systems out and I do it on my own because my labor, I lose it with the school year. I really like what you guys are doing. Watch Phil the Bee Man with his late season splits. I've done some of that. I think that that's wonderful. And I think what you have with indoor wintering is ideal in the sense that you can have much smaller clusters going into winter. And because of the protection that environment offers them, they'll more than replace themselves and come out stronger in the spring. And you've probably seen it yourself. You can do that with cells too. You don't have to use queens. You just have to work that timing in. You have to build it in. And then all that work is done while you still got your student workforce. Because putting out feed in the fall for the bees to take it up, that's nothing. That's, it's very easy peasy beekeeping. And then you just pop them into the shed. So is this too much talk? I don't know. That's just...
Wow.
But I've been raising my own bees since 1983, 84. That's when the last time I bought bees at a commercial scale, other than the odd breeding stock, was 1983. 84, I became totally independent. I participated in some of the programs run by the Ontario Beekeeping Association for stock improvement. But at the end of those, I always regretted it because I thought my own stock was outperforming them. And every time I lose a colony, I consider that an investment. Because that colony, I'm not carrying that genetics forward. So I can it's a way of calling out bad genetics.
So middle of the honey flow, say middle of July, I'm pulling these boxes up and I'm extracting them. I have stacks. During that time, dropping a formic treatment would be appropriate then if it doesn't matter how much headspace above those pads, as long as they have enough airflow and the temperatures aren't out of control. That'd be a good time to treat for a varroa maybe.
Could you repeat the time frame again?
That'd be middle of July. Let's say I start my first pull third week of July, and we go from third week all the way to September. But that first round, there's a flow coming in, and we're stripping on the first round honey boxes, and we're replacing with space. That would be a good time to drop pads of formic down to treat for mites.
But what are you protecting? Like you can kill mite if you want to make mite killing a sport. Then you can kill them whenever you want. If you wanted to do it to protect the bee population, then you got to wait post mid-August because you don't really care about mites in middle of July. At least I don't. Like who cares? Like they're all 90% of them will be in your drone brood, right? So the drone brood's actually acting as a protector of your worker bee force.
But that Formic treatment should be killing those mites then in that drone brood at that time, regardless, right?
Yeah, but this might
because
sound
the way
strange.
my cycle works is middle of July, we're pulling honey. We get to August, second week of August, we have no flow. We're severe dearth, and then the colonies start, building the winter nest for winter, the brood nest. So cleaning them up in July would be a good time to clean up the mites, because then you're protecting that brood nest 3 weeks down the line.
If I were you, I just leave my bees to bring in my honey crop. I wouldn't be doing anything. I'd just let them go. And then, like you said, once you hit mid-August and it shuts off, then that's when you can take a hit of your bee population. So at that point, you don't care about your summer bees, other than their total purpose is to produce the winter bees. So
what would you do for my situation at that time as being a dearth? I think that was one of my issues in the spring when I was treating, is the colonies were light. I mean, they went through a tough spring. They didn't have a lot of resource on hand, and I don't think they had enough feed on hand, and maybe that affected the performance of the Formic. So I'm going to see that exact, or you don't think so?
I just don't see a lot of value in, like, you can do alcohol washes and find you have fairly high mite loads, but they didn't cause economic harm because the brood that's being damaged is drone brood. Now, when it comes mid-August and immediately you're looking at your winter bees will be produced, that's the population that you then want to protect, and you don't need to worry about your honey flow.
Okay, so if I treat in August then with this product, let's say I find a day that's not 35 degrees, I find a 25-degree day. I have these big nests. They're not bringing any nectar anymore. Big nests that are emerging, and they're going to be developing the winter nest. There's not a lot of food in there, so I'm feeding at that time, and I have to bringing in feed as much as I can. How do I reconcile that? Like, they don't have a lot of feed on hand in the nest. There isn't anything coming in. I'm open feeding, I'm pale feeding. So how do I provide a treatment at that time without compromising the nest?
Your outfit, when you have your sixes, for example, they have no pantry. Like, their entire pantry, their entire food reserve is up in the honey supers, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm taking that away.
You've taken that away. So you've created a difficult situation for yourself from my perspective. One of my philosophies is to keep things simple, is no specialized equipment. So I had run a whole bunch of nukes and did exactly the sort of thing you're doing, but it's just extra equipment, extra handling. So I just work in full-size equipment, which means they've always got...
Except that's what I do. I mean, I appreciate that, but that's what I do. So how do I manage the situation, right? So they're without food. They have a brood nest that's, taking much of the cavity of that box, and I'm bringing the feed in to keep them alive and to promote that nest, to grow that nest, to put Formic on there. I'm putting it on a time that it might compromise the nest because there's not a lot of food on hand, which I think was maybe a stress-inducing event. So how do I manage that?
So with your sixes, we don't actually make recommendations for anything other than full-size equipment, simply because...
But even my full-size are the same. My full-size will be like 9 frames of brood, and not a lot of, like, the full-size. I operate single chamber because I want to take that honey out. I don't want that canola honey, so everything goes up, and that nest is practically, like, ask Brad, it's like a box of brood that we're managing. So there's not, like you say, the pantry is not there. So in that situation, how would I manage the Formic treatment coming out of the honey flow? I want to kill those mites that are leaving the drones and are about to affect that winter nest. How do I manage that situation?
So the only thing that's coming to mind at the moment, and this isn't a deep thought, you would leave on one super with the frame or two of honey in there, not and just let the bees treat that as their pantry, and
yeah.
take that up. Now, if you want to do open source feeding, if you're not afraid of contaminating your neighbor's crop, then you can just, you know.
Oh, right, because you're suggesting that open source feeding is different than on Hive feeding.
Yeah. So say you want to give a gallon of syrup to the hives on average, right? So if you got 45 hives in the yard, then open up a 45-gallon drum and just let them have at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you can treat just same as, right?
Oh yeah, I see.
I have a question on like his 6 frames. How do you apply the formic in them? If you put the deep over the 2 of them, do you put 1 pad on each?
That's probably your best outcome, but we haven't run data studies because there's so many variables. Guys run 5s, 4s, 6s, 8s. 8-frame equipment is fine. You just treat it. Same 2 pads if you need to. When you get into 6s, it's just a different world, especially you get those very, very high populations. But as far as the bees having access to food, which is what Ian's talking about, then you can have the honey super on split, because he would put 2 supers over 3 6s, and the bees would come up, get their needs met, and then any open source feeding is also available to them.
So with the protein, sorry, Brad, I'm kind of dominating the questions here.
Oh, that's okay. There's some good comments in the chat there. So
I don't see the comments on the screen.
I don't see the comments either.
The audience is enjoying this. So
everybody wants you back.
you
Oh, no.
keep this up. Oh, don't say that, Joey. Just kidding.
One thing about the protein feeding, I had patties in my colony when I was feeding or treating, and that probably disrupted the. Tell me what the problem with that is, having the patties in the colony while treating with Formic.
Again, we don't really know what the actual biological mechanisms are happening under those conditions. We can just track the trends of people doing those things. We just put up, like I said, a couple days ago, on our if you go N.O.D Apiary Products on YouTube and come up to our channel, it'll just click on the one about the Canadian label, and we go a little bit into what the protein, what feed means, and why it's explained on the label.
So you're not saying it's an act of not having enough ventilation within the nest or not enough circulation. It's something to do with the bees, the dynamic of feeding on that protein throughout the 24-hour period is what's causing the issue. That's what you're kind of saying.
We just know that if you're feeding, like, they should have good food reserves, like from the environment before treating, and that's going to give you your best outcome. And everything becomes statistics. Like, you might have, say, out of 100 hives, you might have 5 where you experience a queen loss, whereas if you hadn't been feeding, if you do feeding, maybe it's 10. So we just put the warning on the label, and just to let people know. And those 5 are probably what would occur within the control colonies anyways, because whenever we run a study and we run our controls, we always have queen losses in the controls, either positive or negative controls. It's a complex organism. So
I did find that with my treatment, I did have queen loss, but I suspect those queens were probably compromised, or they're on their way out anyways, because those yards that had the Formic treatment held themselves together a lot better. I mean, almost completely, as compared to the rest of my apiary that I didn't, because I took a summer call and it was probably queen failure. So the Formic maybe weeded out those queens at that time. Would you agree with that?
It's like, if they're fragile, that'll point them out. Like, that's just, it's Mother Nature at work. It's just.
So what happens there? Is it the bees are killing off the queen, or is it the queen that drops dead?
We've seen both. Like, if the queen's fragile, like I've gone through older queens, and I tilt back a colony and occasionally even find the queen on the bottom board. But then you go in and you find there's mature queen cells that they're just going to it triggered supersedure. So
Yeah.
the bees are probably in that direction anyways.
So after a treatment, how soon is too soon to go into a colony? Let's say I put a double pad on and the treatment's, what's it, a week or something like that? And the pad should be...
Yeah, I like to leave a week to 10 days. And like at the 10-day mark, I'm going through making up my splits, right? I do all my equalization immediately after treatment. And the formula is quite basic: 3 frames of brood, 3 frames of feed, and 3 empty combs for them to grow on. And it's all like, the 3 frames of feed might actually be across 6 frames, and the 3 empty frames might be the bottom of those 6 frames, and then there's the 3 frames of brood. And that unit will take them perfectly up to the honey flow and have them ready in prime shape for the honey flow. And then,
what would be the issue if I went into the colony, like let's say 5 days after the 2-pad treatment?
Probably all right. Like depends what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish. It's like yourself. I run a goal-driven, minimum labor, let the bees do all the work, kind of do things once, get her done, and then live with the outcome. And it's, anyways, I could preach for an hour. I think I've talked enough.
Because before this one last.
Go ahead.
When I put the trap, I like to follow up like right away. Following up on a Formic treatment 3 days after is too soon because the treatment's not done. But following up 5 days after the treatment's probably done, then I could, take care of business or carry on with my work because we have lots of work to do here. It's not like I have to wait 10 days because the bees are in a state of fragility or whatever because the treatments compromise the queen or something like that.
Yeah. So personal experience, I'll go in like 2 days afterwards, and there'll be an arc under the pads where you can't find any eggs. But I'll go through every frame, and a lot of people say it shuts down queens, but I've always found eggs somewhere in every colony where there's a queen. And it just depends what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to see those sheets of brood, the area of brood we call it brood burn internally, where they've cleaned out the brood because of the damage from the formic acid. That is the nicest egg pattern you'll ever see. Like because they've just cleaned it out perfectly, and the nurse bees have cleaned that all out. But even with that, somewhere else within the hive cavity, you'll find the queen she's full of, her ovaries are full. She's determined to lay eggs. She has to. She's driven by the forces of nature to be an egg layer. That's what she does. And somewhere you will find eggs in that hive cavity. So at least that's been my experience, that she doesn't actually ever shut down. You just have to go find out where she was active.
Brad will reminisce sometimes about Formic and just asking about, if you don't mind me saying, Brad, linking your name to this comment, just the act that it seems like there's a secondary benefit to the Formic, and is it doing something against viral loads like the virus within the nest, or do you see it more like just the overall hygienic antiseptic nature of the Formic? What's your thoughts on that? Our bees are just plagued with virus. There's a lot of virus exposure. Do you see the Formic providing a benefit to the virus as a secondary effect, or is that just a beekeeper thinking too much?
I think that was at you, Brad.
Oh no, sorry, David. I meant that to be to you, David.
No.
Oh, sorry.
For me, that's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah. No, we did virus studies with North Dakota, a lab based out of North Dakota, and we ran a 5-part series on our IPM, covers the data from the virus work. And so you're going to get your virus levels under control using formic acid. It may not happen in the first go round. There's environmental pressures, but like you shouldn't be seeing deformed wing virus until the end. Express itself as symptoms until the last half of September, and then it's getting its final cleanup before you form your winter cluster with the Formic treatment.
So we have had a number of questions go through the chat, and can you see these questions on the screen, David?
For slowing down the gas when you're pushing the top temperature range, even in the spring. Yeah, you can't. Formic acid as a molecule is going to do what it's going to do. And when we created the gel, it's the chemistry behind it is the formic acid interacts with the sugars in the saccharide gel to create formic acid esters, which means those esters won't gas off in the immediate placement. Then they have to convert back, to the non-ester state to be released into the hive cavity. You don't really want to slow down the release even at the higher temperatures. You can allow the bees more control by increasing the hive cavity, which people may have missed our discussion earlier. But your best way to deal with all this is just to have on a honey super or a secondary brood chamber, even if it's over queen excluder or not over queen excluder. We ran studies in Texas and over in Spain where the temperatures hit 42, 43 degrees Celsius. And the one mitigating factor was if they were being run with honey supers on, we didn't see any issues with queens, even at those extreme temperatures. And those were all GLP scientifically controlled over in Europe, and in Texas, they were run by Dr. Frank Eischen, working out of the Westlaco Bee Lab.
So another one here that goes back to the discussion of the perceived queen problems. Could be speculation, but if you want to comment on that, David.
Sure.
Or anyone else for that matter.
Yeah. I always find eggs somewhere in the hive cavity. Like it's just, she's been pushed off perhaps the typical brood rearing zone that she was running, but she's so driven to lay eggs that another comment, if you don't mind me saying, is a lot of people like to cage the queen and then they'll, 2 weeks later release her for a week and then they'll treat with an oxalic acid dribble or an oxalic acid vapor, and that's fine. But if the queen was going to be laying 800 to 1,000 eggs a day and for 2 weeks, that's all brood loss. That's a lot of loss if you shut your queen down by caging her for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So even if it does hit your eggs and brood for the 2 or 3 days at the start of the treatment, compared to caging a queen for 2 weeks, which is very typical in Europe, they'll cage for a couple of weeks and then let her lay for a week and then treat with an oxalic acid dribble. You've lost all that brood. So
a question earlier, I can't find it right now, but it was about the effect of the treatment, specifically off-gassing, I believe, as is compared with varying levels of relative humidity in the area.
We've tested this from rainforests to deserts. The bees have enough control of the humidity within the brood rearing zone that doesn't really play in as a factor of efficacy. Not with our method of applying formic acid. Those that used other dispensers, wicks and foam sponges and dials and a whole bunch of other things that are not right in the brood rearing zone, are probably more impacted. But with our formic acid only being at 42%, like we really dialed the exposure risk just in the formulation.
Okay, we have a cowboy here that's asking a question about applying this indoors if you can control the temperature.
That's a good question. Dr. Rob Curry did a lot of work on that as a fumigant. I'd like to hear you talk about this.
Well, for one thing, how much do you want to risk your facility? Like, it's very corrosive to metal, right? So
Yeah.
I'll just put it out there that initially you want to look at your facility, and there have been fumigation chambers built, and Rob and Underwood and Dr. Rob Curry did a lot of work on that, and we often cite it in our applications to regulatory officials when we compare it to the concentration of vapors we find in brood rearing zones. But personally, just straight for health and for protection of your environment, I wouldn't recommend it as an indoor treatment. I also had beekeepers out west open their winter wraps this time of year, as they normally would, for putting in apistan at the time, or fluvalinate tau is the active ingredient. But they thought, well, we'll just see how it works with formic acid. Not a good outcome. You know, you want the bees out flying and interacting through the day, and give them. It's not designed to function as a conventional chemical.
So of course this is a follow-up to that question, and I won't answer it for you, but I know what I would say.
Yeah. Well, it's the product functions within their range, and then the bees determine the concentration. Like, we don't really need to, the reason for the 10 degrees for the lower temperature is because the bees are not clustered. Like, they have to take control of their environment. So if you treat when it's too cold, then the bees have clustered up. They can't take control of their environment. And the upper temperatures, one of the things they're doing is they're ventilating, because they're trying to, once you get above 30 degrees Celsius, the bees are ventilating their brood chamber to cool it, because they want to maintain it at about 35. And bees naturally just give off a lot of heat. So once you get to a point where it's that hot, they're just flushing out the vapors, and you're not going to be getting good efficacy. So it's not just about protecting the bees, it's also about optimizing your efficacy.
I have a question on when you said you were doing single and then you had a queen excluder and an empty box above it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use a metal or a plastic queen excluder? Doesn't it corrode the metal ones?
You'll get a dust on the metal, especially if it's a new one. An older queen excluder that's had wax and propolis and stuff built on it, that's a oil or a fat molecule, and formic acid doesn't do much. But I've had excluders for a quarter century I'm still using that have had formic under them every one of those years, and the bees just polish them off once you remove the strips by moving. It doesn't break the metal down. It's just
all right.
I can actually speak to that from experience. Just that I used it last year under my metal queen excluders on quite a number of colonies, and I couldn't even see any indication on the queen excluder, and probably nearly half of those queen excluders were brand new, that there'd been anything on it. So I because I was told that, and I was kind of wondering, what was going to be the effect. And then when I took them off, I couldn't even detect anything on the queen excluder at all. Well, thank you to David for answering questions and informing us on the product.
Thanks for letting me in.
It's a product that a lot of people want to use, and there is a lot of I'll put it fear, because I've had the fear of it too, and I don't think all of that fear is unfounded, because with any treatment you need to follow protocol, and you need to know what to expect. But I need to use it. I want to use it. So the learning curve has begun with me, and I'm getting experience now with it.
I appreciate you letting me into the chat, and I can talk about anything to do with bees. It doesn't have to just be formic.
Yeah.
It's in 2 weeks I'll turn 65, and I started back in 1975 with my first hives of bees, and my parents, I think, thought I was nuts because we lived in suburbia. But when I finished high school, I had 75 hives of bees. I don't know, they just have been this magnet for me my whole life.
Was it in your parents' backyard still?
Initially I got 2 hives and I put packages in them in my parents' backyard right beside the rabbit hutch, and they lasted about 3 weeks. And then my mom was raised on a mixed farm with a dairy component, and they said you can come and put them in the corner of just off to the side of the barn. So my poor dad, he in a bee bale in the family station wagon with the bees in the back. The 2 of us looked strange, I'm sure, going down the road. Me, this 14-year-old kid, and my dad who didn't want to be there at all, I'm sure, taking me out to my grandparents' farm to set out these 2 hives of bees. So I can never thank my parents enough for the support they gave me through those early years. But I would ride out on my bicycle with a Comani Super lashed across the carrier on the back just to go spend time with my bees. It was just an amazing animal to me, this gift from God. But yeah.
I got to sign off here. Nice talking to you, David. Thanks for popping in. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks for coming in.
Yep. See you guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Right.
So we had MJ Mike show up in the meantime. What's going on, Mike?
I just cooked up a few batches of goat milk soap earlier, so I was a little preoccupied tonight.
You had a little live stream today, didn't you?
Yeah. Just before. Did I do one earlier?
I think it was just as I was going live. I think you were on it.
Yep. Around 8 o'clock, I think I started mine up.
I would have tuned in, but I was occupied.
Oh, it's all good. I was just cooking soap.
Goat's milk soap.
Oh, yeah. It's good stuff.
Interesting.
David, how many hives did you say you're running?
Myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So historically between 400 and 600, but in 2005, I started winding it down. I still have 100 hives. And then I also run the hives in conjunction with the research team at N.O.D products. So
how many do you have there?
Well, we just wrapped up a study on the different hive design, the Layens hive. I think between the 2, we're right around 150, 160 hives at the moment.
Nice.
But to give you an idea, that N.O.D has over 50 employees, and it's quite an enterprise. And I'm the operational CEO at the moment. So the bees are my happy place. It gets me out of the office and allows me to.
N.O.D runs itself, though.
Yeah,
I'm a member of several clubs, and they'll have Tom Nolan speak.
Yeah.
And then the next club has it, and then the next club has it, then the next club has it. Like, oh God, 4 months in a row we've had to listen to Tom.
Sorry about that.
No, I like him.
Tom's a joy. It's always.
But
nice
when you remember different clubs, like now we have one guy rolling wax into the corners of his frames. Everybody thinks it's great. I'm like, oh God. I already informed one of the clubs I would not be there next month.
Thanks, Grayson.
Yeah, you really opened my eyes more to it. I used to use it a lot, and I've been trying to use less treatments and see what my bees are doing, and trying to breed from the better ones. So, but I always carry a 30-pack of it just in case I gotta go in.
What? I think, didn't you say, David, that everybody on the chat tonight's getting a 30-pack of Formic Pro just for being here? Just like the Oprah show?
Sure.
Sorry, I may have been mistaken, but I thought that's what the arrangement was.
Yeah, it must have slipped my mind.
Brad, look here.
There you go.
I've already used mine up.
Have you used yours up? Well, you know what? That reminds me, JW, one of my very favorite things about the product. is it's organic compostable.
Yeah, but don't leave it on your nice lawn.
It's organic acid, and the substrate is compostable. And yeah, don't, if you throw it on the grass and leave it, it's going to kill your grass.
Yeah, I found that out one year. I
Everybody
had little
tells me not.
rectangular squares all over the lawn by the
That's great.
beehives.
I don't recommend you do what I do, but there's some of the 57 hives I pulled off of today,
Yep.
you know, and I just left them on 10 days and jerked them, and they're completely, you know, they're completely gassed off, I would say, or off gassed, however you want to say it. Am I crazy, David, or is that? I mean, I've done it for years. That hasn't killed me yet. I'm only 82, so.
You're fine. For our own biology, we actually formic acid is used in our own cell communication systems, and if we get too much, we simply piss it out. It's just it's part of nature's design. This stuff for my own. When I pull the strips off my own hives, I set them right tight to the bottom of the hive stand, and that just keeps the grass. And then partway through the summer, I don't even find them anymore because, you know, you mow across the front and it just breaks them down. So I actually use them. I use them to keep the grass down right in front of the hives.
That's a good idea.
That's
Well,
smart.
like I said, I've had good luck with it. You know, everybody's panics or about it killing their bees and stuff. I've never had it kill a queen, but I use a little different. I don't follow. I'm old school. I don't always follow protocol, David.
Yeah.
So
Not you, JW. Come on.
but
So you mentioned this, David, a few minutes ago. So maybe you want to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, we actually produced a YouTube video which hasn't been posted yet, but we placed it in different positions within the laying hives, and it turns out that the best results come by suspending them vertically. You can just staple them to the top bar, 2 strips on one side of a brood chamber frame, and then lower that into the brood chamber, and excellent results.
So I have one of our Canadian beekeepers here, commercial beekeepers. So he's feeling a little better about trying the product out.
it hadn't killed me, Brad.
And this was not like, and I want to be clear, you know, David just dropped in here. This was not arranged. This was not set up to be an infomercial or anything. And I don't think it's been presented as such either. So this is just totally organic going on, questions and answers and conversation. So none of this was set up.
I'm
I would
glad
say you gave us some wonderful information.
Thank you. Well, feel free to kick me out anytime if I'm not of use. Just
No, it's been
pull the
very
plug.
Well, it's good. I don't do very many live streams, and it's because I'm not I don't know what the term is, but I'm not the host that keeps the conversation going very easily. So it's kind of good to have somebody that has some information that's interesting, to be honest.
That's very, very good information. I'm glad I brought the subject up, you know, because I was very interested in the use of Formic and how other folks use it, and then particularly the CEO of the company. So great information. I appreciate it very much.
Well, we're an hour earlier here, being based in Ontario, and I need to get to bed. So if you don't mind,
So just one last message from Ian. He just wanted to thank you for setting up at the convention.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's very nice to see Tom
Well,
and
we
Dana
support
there.
what we can. All right. Great. Thanks,
Okay.
Nice meeting you,
Well,
David.
we'll get some sleep,
Good
David.
hearing you. Good night now.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, this guy. He
That
can't
was
decide
really
if
good.
he wants to be here or not.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that.
good information.
Yeah. So I have to try and keep the conversation going now.
Well, I'm just tickled to death that I happened to ask a question on a Formic and he happened to come in, you know that.
Yeah.
initiated a lot of information that I think can do a lot of people that's scared to death of this stuff.
That's what happens when you're the president of
someone
the.
to try anything. So
That's what happens when you're the president of the Big Mike fan club.
yeah, that's right.
There you go.
Yeah.
President of Big Mike Fan Club.
I think it's done me wonders.
President got to meet the CEO of N.O.D, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Two big wheels in here together.
Yeah.
What a nice guy.
Very well
He's just a nice guy.
Talked to him a few weeks ago, and I told him, we have these live chats online, so I said you should come on one of these sometime. So I mean, I didn't line this up for tonight. I just, Bob was otherwise engaged, and I think you probably saw some of his comments as to why. I don't make it my business to make public other people's business, so I haven't been talking about that. But yeah, David just showed up on his own volition, so that was, and obviously from the comments we're getting on the stream and in the chat, people enjoyed that, so I'm really happy about that. Now we need to get the guy that invented Puree in a cat chow. I think that's a different stream.
Oh, we could work it in.
We could work it in.
You got a bee cat right there.
Yeah. He lives on Temptations, though, not Purina.
Has it warmed up for you, Brad?
Not really. It's just kind of, I mean, it's hovering just about the freezing temperature or just below, but we're not melting any snow because it's just not warm enough.
Snow melts down to minus 32, I think, or minus 27 Fahrenheit. That's what they say anyway.
It'll melt or evaporate?
It like evaporates.
Yeah, freeze dried.
Look, Mr. Boots.
Some cat food.
Joey's bringing in Temptations for you. Thanks, Joey. Mr. Boots says thanks, Joey.
That's top of the rock cat food. I feed that cheap bag stuff to my 7 cats.
Well, I've always fed these cats what I think is good quality cat food, and I won't malign any cat food brand or anything, but not the department store stuff, the stuff at the pet store and whatnot. And he's over 19 years old now, so who am I to say it was the wrong thing to do?
Yeah.
And he's grabby.
He's needy.
He is needy. He's always been needy. That's the boys. They're just very
Joey,
needy.
I got a question for you, actually. All those jars of honey up top on that shelf, are those the vintages over the years?
That's people I've met at like the expos.
Oh, nice.
And different workshops and stuff.
So honey from all over.
Yep.
Cool. That's awesome.
A lot of these guys over here in the chat, theirs is up here.
Nice.
Doesn't have one of mine up there, though, I don't think.
Probably not.
He's gonna
Because
have
you
to
haven't
get
come
one.
down to the expo.
I know. Maybe MJ is going to come to the expo next year. What do you think, MJ?
I don't know. Maybe 2 years.
Carpool with Charlie, maybe.
Yeah.
Clay's been hearing the cat buzzing on the speaker.
How are your bees looking, JW?
Doing good. I was in them all day today. I went to, I wasn't in them deep, but I went through 57 today, the old man.
Matt and Tom coming over shortly to help you make them so warm?
No, I say no. Matt's got about all he can handle on the dirty side. And Tom, he's headed for Colorado. So Matt and another young newer beekeeper was out over the weekend, and we went through a bunch of woodware. I mean, a bunch, like 600.
They did some serious wax dipping this weekend.
Yeah, we did some serious wax dipping. Still got more to do. And my good friend Mark Millis, I've still got some of his stuff. I got them drilled, Mark, if you're still on here. I got them drilled. I don't know if you want them put together or not. They'll take up a lot more room hauling them home. So if you're on here, you might respond. Well, I guess we're still on, aren't we?
Yep.
You know, Mark, if you're on here, you might respond to where you want them put together or not, because I'm going to start on them tomorrow or the next day probably. If you want them put together, I got them whole. You're going to have to screw them now, regardless, because I've got them holes drilled for the screws. So what are you thinking? You want me to go ahead and start putting them together? See if he responds. He said he's out here.
That he's there.
He said he's here. He hadn't answered your question yet. He must be thinking about it. What's this going to cost me?
Well, it ain't going to cost him nothing.
There you go.
He said it up to you.
Can you haul them? Can you haul them if I put them together? If you got enough room in your whatever you got? That was my concern. I don't care to do it at all. I'll screw them and dip them.
You send him a text message, maybe?
Yeah, he could. Yes.
He says yes.
Okay. Well,
All right.
we'll start on them probably within the next 2 days.
Can you still glue wax dip stuff?
As a stick.
It doesn't, right?
Glue needs to absorb into the wood.
Could you glue them first and then dunk the whole box?
Yeah. My equipment is glued and then dipped.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't even hardly get duct tape to stick to them after you wax.
I've tried PL Premium. No stick.
It won't stay. You think you got it, and next day it's hanging. One little place hanging on.
Right. That's right.
Joey, did you ever make those grooves you were going to make for your long hives to slide the plywood in?
No, not yet.
How thick is the plywood?
You talking about the different inner covers?
No, the long hives. You got screen bottom board. You were talking about you wanted to make a slide in board.
Well, I got the ones that I'm actually going to use to slide in.
Yeah.
I just need to make my rails where I can slide.
How thick are they?
Huh?
How thick is the plywood?
It's like Luan, about a 1/4 inch maybe.
1/4 inch, so like 5/16 groove would fit, or
yeah,
think 3/8.
Well, the board I'm going to use to make the rail with, it'll probably be 1/2 inch, and I'll just cut a 3/8 notch in it.
Yeah,
where it can just slide in. I think we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a ton of strips of pine. You want me to throw some through the shaper? I'll put them in a tube and ship them.
You ain't got to worry about that.
All right.
I appreciate it, though.
It's easy. I just put it against the fence and the power feed sends it through.
Yeah.
We're just over 2 hours. Should we shut down the live stream now, and we can resume in the green room after the live stream is over? Thanks for attending, everybody. I really appreciate the support on the channel. And I'm glad everybody enjoyed the conversation and the information that was given out tonight. Appreciate everyone for participating, and you all have a really good evening. Keep your smoker lit.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.